Hello, welcome. Today I wanted to talk about embodiment. Embodiment is becoming a really important topic, and we are seeing it everywhere as we are literally grounding more into our physical form. So we're seeing embodiment, excuse me, in a number of different realms, and a lot of it is working with embodiment through movement, really working with embodiment through supporting and regulating the nervous system. And for me, with Art of Sacred Embodiment, it has meant many things over the last, I don't know, almost decade and a half probably. When I first named my business Art of Sacred Embodiment, it meant one thing that was very different, and it really connected me more towards more with that embodiment process of a Shakti Kundalini practice and path, working with the divine feminine and really surrendering to that feminine force within that guides and heals and purifies and initiates and supports that energetic evolution of our consciousness. So that for me was embodiment, and that encompassed, then that went on to encompass a very general understanding in many ways that we're always embodying something, right? So we're always embodying the predominant consciousness from which we operate. So we can say consciousness, frequency, and then within that consciousness and frequency, there's going to be a bandwidth of thought forms or emotions that go with any gradation from density, less density to more density. Let's just say that. So, and I've talked about this example before, but I'll just say it again. So let's say, for instance, that somebody who has a deep conditioning within their being of anger, all right, and that's operating from wounding, and they've used anger as their defense mechanism. They've maybe used anger as their source of empowerment. And so what's going to happen is, even if that person is in a good mood, right? Say you meet them and they're in a good mood, or you happen across their path and they're in a good mood, there is a good chance that there will still be an expression of that frequency and consciousness coming through. It may come through a tone in the voice. It may come through a level of reactivity. It may come through in a mentality that might be more victim-minded, fear-based, those type of things. And so even if they're not actively angry at that point in time, that is a signature of which they are operating from, a frequency, a consciousness. So likewise, somebody who, say, embodies a great deal of joy and gratitude, they might have a bad day. They might even be a little bit angry. And yet, when they're expressing their anger or their unhappiness or disturbance, if their frequency is already at that consciousness of joy or happiness, we'll say happiness and then joy, because happiness is an emotion, joy is a state of being, so let's just say happiness. um, who is naturally that. They have, they've cultivated that, or that their life has afforded them that, perhaps based on their karma versus, a lot of hardship karma, that type of juxtaposition. The happy person may be really unhappy, and yet the emanation that comes from them is going to be more more uplifted, right? It's going to have a lighter feeling to them. So I started recognizing that we all have what we predominantly embody based on our conditioning, our life experiences, and this is like before we start the healing journey. Life experiences, our thought forms and belief systems. And then as we begin our healing, and as our frequency begins to transmute into a higher vibration, and that density is lifted from, whatever might have been that heavier expression, then the frequency changes, because everything energetically is shifting now to embody something new. And maybe that just simply becomes gratitude. But gratitude becomes this frequency that deeply resonates for a period of time, or maybe always, but like for a period of time, enough to really transmute what has been more dense. And then everything about that person begins to change. They are embodying a new consciousness. Their thought processes, their emotional imprints are different. The way in which they deal with life then is going to be different. So there's that piece of embodiment. And I think what I really wanted to talk more about at this point in time is the embodiment of, yes, all of that, and the embodiment of our soul presence. So what a lot of us don't always recognize is that most of humanity is not living in their body, right? Their energy is very scattered. Our society, our conditioning over the last, we'll say 20 years, 15 to 20 years, particularly with technology, has cultivated a very scattered energetic field. And then we're interacting with many other scattered energetic fields. The frequencies of the planet are changing from a denser, more grounded feeling as well, more grounded energetic of the magnetics, to much more now of, we could just say like more of that electrical uplifting force. But it doesn't necessarily mean your frequency is going to raise completely. It might do it a little bit, but what it starts to do is it takes us even more out of our body, because we're not landing, we're not resting, we're not living from our root chakra and then expanding out from here, right? We're just kind of scattering out all over the place. Wherever we have experienced trauma or wounding or events in our lives that have been, deeply impactful in a negative way, we deposit bits of our soul force, our energy force, in those places and spaces, in those timelines, so that we aren't actually whole. we're scattered, and then we've deposited parts of ourselves in other places, um, and and then if we're fearful, or if we don't know how to navigate our deeper emotional selves, right? We tend to disconnect from the body. So then we're even more disempowered and disembodied, so to speak. So what's been happening, and the nervous system, right, does have a lot to do with this. So what's been happening over the last few years is that because of all of the shifts within our evolutionary process, our spiritual evolutionary process, even if you were doing a lot of spiritual work, even let's say, 6 years ago, most of that was going to have this up and out through the higher centers, right? Through the heart, the throat, the third eye, the crown, and those higher centers. And over time, that pulls any of our reserves that need to be connected to the earth up. And that too becomes disempowering because we aren't grounded and rooted. So, that first part of the first probably decade of the ascension trajectory was very much this up and out, this multi-dimensional experiencing. And then a few years ago, right, we had a big event in all over the world, and it landed everybody back down in their body. And when we started landing down in our body, our evolutionary process of awakening, of ascension, of our spiritual development shifted from experiencing the multidimensional realities that's always inside of us, but what seemed like it was more through those upper centers, to then bringing those energies back and anchoring those higher energies down into the physical body. Now, all of these are soul fractals. These are all parts of our soul presence. Any timelines that are dense or lower, or are wounding or deposits, I just refer to those as our soul fragments. We've been fragmented, right, in a level of density and more forgetfulness of the truth that we are. So when we do our healing work, when we're doing that reclamation, right? When I heal this, teenage part of me over here, then what happens is I bring that part of me back, that healed and more wise and purified part, back into not back into, but creating more wholeness. So the more we heal, right, we're pulling our energy back, we're coming into what I like to call our holy and wholeness. All right. So then, as above, so below. Then we start working with our higher aspects, our higher dimensional soul fractals, those levels of consciousness and wisdom that are here guiding us always and supporting us. So as we start raising our frequency, we start connecting to these soul aspects of ourselves. And then over time, that consciousness begins that integration. So we've reclaimed our lower fragments. So our soul is more grounded and rooted in our body, right? We feel safe and secure. And then we're pulling back or pulling in and learning to work with our higher expressions. And the more our frequency rises, the higher the expressions that begin working with us and teaching us and guiding us, and then embodying as us. And that level of embodiment is what then begins to activate our divine blueprint. And the divine blueprint is that which I kind of look at it as it takes us out of karma, the karma loops of the healing and the density, and takes us more into what are we co-creating now as more highly evolved, healed, and purified beings that now can live from a space of love and freedom and joy and celebration and interconnectivity, compassion, becomes more unified, right? So we're actually working with unification on our embodiment level when we're bringing the lower in purified wholeness. We're empowered from the base, bringing the higher in that wisdom, that divine essence that we are. And then our soul power grows. It expands, right? The spirit that we are begins to expand to create a fuller, more stable aura, or then the light body. So embodiment in general is not actually just a really, in my perspective, and from the lens that I work with, it's this ongoing multi-layered process because we are multi-dimensional beings. And each phase and stage takes, time and tending and growing into self-love, growing into a deeper connection with divine source, into my will becomes one with divine will. And then the next layer, which is really cool, where we're really heading next, is recognizing that we live in a quantum universe, right? So we're all of the potentials. We're all of these places. We are entangled quantumly with all of life. So we start out with this deeper self-intimacy through our healing process, through our evolution, through beginning to know who we truly are from a place of love and divine presencing. And then we get to start recognizing that we can connect with the consciousness of the planet, of the trees, of the animals, of the flowers, of the waters, of the earth, of the mountains, of power points on the planet, the grid lines, the crystalline grid lines on the planet. But then we expand out even more to that unified field and come into a level of intimacy, right? I was just doing a video for the new and full moon meditation journeys that we're doing through the winter. So we start recognizing that we can actually start to form this relationship with the moon and develop more connection with those frequencies, more intimacy, knowing ourselves more deeply and knowing the information and light codes from the moon, from many of the other planets. right? So we're moving exponentially while being grounded in our lower centers, grounded in our body. We're starting to be able to communicate and interact and unify with many of the beautiful, beautiful, benevolent sources of divine creation. So, so like this is as far as we can see right now, right? And we're just touching in, tiptoeing in to the celestial realm, communications and connections, and understanding who we are in relationship to that realm while we deepen our relationship with the earth realm. So what are some of the ways that you might be able to tell if you're ungrounded? Okay. If you're not living in your body from your body. So I already named one of them. Very scattered thinking and the very short attention spans, right? Because maybe you're on technology a lot, social media a lot, all of the quickening, I don't even know what these platforms are, but these quickening forms of technology that pull your energy out of the body. So using technology is fine, but we want to use it mindfully, intentionally. And when we're just sort of zoning out, it literally is pulling our energy out of our body. When we're mindlessly scrolling or online even too much, because those EMFs distort our field. Okay, the electromagnetic field of technology. It's dense and it creates distortions in our fields and takes them from a place of ideally coherent into staticky or starting to fragment our field. And a lot of our health and our vitality comes from a strong energy field. So what are a couple other ways? Fight or flight, right? A lot of fight or flight in the nervous system usually is going to keep you out of the body. Rushing around, stress, being too busy, right? It's like sort of a fear of missing out, um, um, creating a schedule that's back to back is going to pull your energy out of your body and scatter your power. And it's going to literally scatter what's there to serve you from your reservoirs of deeper power into disempowered condition. What are some of the other things? You know, too much caffeine can dissipate and scatter your energy if you're operating from that. If you are not outside enough to actually get that grounding, is going to be hard to get in your body. If you're not sleeping well, that is going to keep you from being more deeply embodied. You know, medications and things like that that interfere with our body clocks, with our chronobiology, right? The time signatures that are in every cell and every organ that supports how our body optimally runs, because the body is strong and healthy and it doesn't carry a toxic load. So we just want to be mindful. And if if there are medications that are needed, what do you do to counter that, right? What do you do to support your system, your mind, your emotions, to keep you in the body, to keep you healthy and strong and vital? Emotions that we've denied, that we've stuffed, that we have, like, go away, I'm not going to look at that, that will disembody you, because you're literally saying, I don't want to see that part of myself. I don't want to see that part of myself. You're kind of kicking, which is your shadow aspects. You're kind of kicking your shadow to the curb, hoping that things are going to get better, but you're actually then not able to operate from a place of wholeness and a deeper level of inner security, which is why the healing work, why we're all doing this deep, healing work right now. Trauma keeps us separated from being in our body. The fear of maybe pain and traumatic events. The body was not a safe place. So that keeps us from being in our body. So there are a number of different ways. And that's just, a snippet. Anytime you're feeling that you're not able to be present, like right here, right now, for a period of time, we'll just say 10 minutes, then you're most likely having a hard time getting all the way into your body. Being able to move slower through life, being able to be in a natural rhythm, natural time, sacred rhythm. I've got a video on that. Not being able to be relaxed, not being able to just rest and digest, to just be, and not being able to receive in subtleties coming towards you, subtle information from others. If you're in relationship with somebody and you can't actually just be there present, but your mind is everything that you want to say, that you should say. And your constitution is going to have something to do with this as well. If you're a much more grounded person naturally, because you, let's say, have more earth and water, you can still not be present, even though you might look really grounded, right, and seem very still. There tends to be with those constitutions that you're not necessarily speeding up everywhere, but you're just zoning out and disconnecting, right? You're just like, you're disconnecting. You aren't present. You're disconnecting into sort of like just this haze, right? Not really wanting to be present. Those of us who are more air and fire like myself, it happens the more that I speed up, right? The more I speed up, the more I try to do too many things, the more scattered I get. I can tell immediately my energy starts rising up out of here, and then my body, my biology starts reacting to it, right? Mainly my digestion. So my digestive system lets me know that, it's actually supposed to be moving in a downward flow. And once I turn the dial up too much, the energy only goes up, and I'm not in my body completely. And it's causing and wreaking havoc on my systems. So I just wanted to share a little bit of this because I think it's fascinating where we're going. And things are speeding up energetically, planetarily. Over the next couple years, we're going to see things, I think, just zooming by. So getting into the body is the way to maneuver and manage with ease and grace, and learning the skills and learning what the sensations are, your own biofeedback. It's another one. If you don't or can't read what your body is telling you, the information, that biofeedback, you're probably not in your body. If you don't connect to sensations in your body, you probably aren't in your body. So, excuse me, I'm going to leave it there. So in Art of Sacred Embodiment, right, we work with all of these layers and levels, which keeps it really rich and allows this deepening process that I find really fascinating, and most everybody that, does this work finds really fascinating as well. So if that speaks to you at all, if you're working with embodiment, if you're struggling with embodiment, if you're wondering, well, am I, aren't I, all of that, reach out. I would be curious what your experiences are if you shared them in the comments below, because I'm curious how everybody experiences either their embodiment or challenge with embodiment differently, and then how much we share in common as well. And with that, I'm going to sign off. So, blessings. The new moon is coming. The moon is all about getting us back in the body, particularly the new moon. So, I was going to end, but last thing, just give yourself that gift of entering in, slowing down, coming off technology, spending time in more silence or with gentle music, right? Let the new moon's magic work to bring a deeper nourishment and to bring you more fully into your embodied experience. And if there are ways that I mentioned that you would really like assistance with, definitely please reach out. We can talk. I am seeing a private client, so I'm happy to do a consultation and see if there's an alignment there. So with that, enjoy the new moon and coming home. Embodiment is that coming home. All right. Blessings.